Welcome everyone to another episode of LunarCRUSH Live. Today we got Jason and Haider coming from OKCoin. We're super excited to have them here. Again, disclaimer, we do not take payment for our live streams. We bring on cool people, projects that we want to learn about, that we want to get involved with, that are doing cool stuff, launching fun things, and are deep into the community. And make sure you guys get in there and ask some questions for them. Make them very, very difficult and controversial for these guys. We're gonna make it happen. I'm just kidding. Ask anything you want. And then make sure you get that subscribe button going. We've got a lot of fun live streams happening over the next month. We want you guys all to be involved. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Jason, Haider, how are you guys doing today?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
So we'll start, Jason. We always start, where are you in the world? And I know we're talking backstage, but where are you in the world? What's the weather like there today? What's happening?
I'm in California, Southern California here. It's a beautiful day as usual. Can't wait to step outside after this, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, sun has been shining. And Haider, tell us, where are you in the world? What's it like?
Yeah, I'm in Northern California. So weather's great here today too. It's I think we're gonna hit 70 degrees. It's nice and sunny, and I hope I get to get outside and maybe take a call or two while walking. The weather's beautiful.
Yeah, no, the walking meetings are always the best, as long as like the wind isn't hitting you. I always call my mom and she's like, "It's too loud, I can't hear." You gotta love it.
We just got a new puppy, so we almost have to take him out. Otherwise, he's got too much pent up energy.
That's awesome. What kind of puppy did you get?
He's a Legato, which is an Italian water dog.
That sounds very fancy.
I'll send you a picture
cool.
later, Joe. I don't know how else to describe it.
I'll be Googling it while you answer some of these questions right now. So I've got a fun one I want to start with, and I know today we wanted to talk about branding and marketing, and it's an interesting subject in this space. And I know you guys have been in here for a long time with OKCoin and into the space and finance and marketing. But I want to ask, and maybe Jason, we can start with you. Like, what brand or brands are most memorable to you from your childhood? And looking back now, what do you think made them so impactful? Like, as an adult looking back now, what do you think made them so impactful?
Obviously, you didn't ask us to prep for this one, but just thinking off the cuff here, Nintendo is one for me from my childhood that really resonates. I don't know. Maybe it's just because every time the game boots up, there's that Nintendo, it flashes across the screen. It's like literally imprinted on my TV and in my brain. But I think it's just been so symbolic for me that it just represents fun, a little bit of freedom, right? It's this alternative world that I could dive into, and it's still highly relevant today, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, that would be my choice.
Very, very cool. And then Haider, what do you think? What do you remember as a child? What was so impactful looking back now as an adult?
I think a couple of brands come to mind. One is Pepsi. Pepsi was at such a forefront of culture when I was growing up. Even growing up, not in the United States, not in a Western country. I was in the eastern part of the world, but Pepsi was. I remember their tagline, "The choice of the next generation," or something to that effect. And I think that had a really memorable impact on me in my childhood. And I think another one would probably be, I want to skip a gaming, because Jason already pointed out to a gaming brand. I think it was Pepsi, and perhaps, I think Pepsi was probably the most impactful brand for me.
No, it's interesting to think about, like, gaming, which kind of pulls you in, and you attach to that and you kind of play with it. And then like Pepsi, which is just this kind of overarching, like, I remember some of those spots, which was always like, there was dancing, there was fun, there was like this different level that they kind of brought you into. So that's cool that you guys chose those.
I think Microsoft would be my second one. I think I remember just being really, really young and playing with Microsoft Windows. And I remember this one kid, everyone had a Microsoft or a PC, Windows-based PC, and there was this one kid who somehow got a Mac in the neighborhood. And I remember everyone was just from the neighborhood flocking to his house to like play with his new Mac. But yeah, Windows, I think, really stayed part of my life for at least the first 20 years.
Did you end up making the switch over to Mac eventually?
No, I went to work at Microsoft, so I never, I didn't do it until I was forced to by one of my employers.
That's awesome. Yeah, I made the switch a while back, but I was always so hardcore PC and just right click, move anything, adjust anything, find anything. And then now using a Mac for so long, I go back to the PC and I'm like, holy shit, I might not even know how to use this thing. And I used to
totally agree,
close
Joe.
my eyes to use Excel, didn't even have to look at it.
You know, the weirdest thing is that the keyboards are different, right? So, you know, that the commands are different. The shortcuts are all different. I have a backup like Windows laptop that I load up once in a while. It just messes up because all the keyboard shortcuts are different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like your efficiency goes down in those first like couple of months as you make the transition. Okay, kind of tagging on to that a little bit. And Haider, maybe you could start. So what do you think was like the most ridiculous campaign you've ever seen firsthand? So like basically something that it's better if you were kind of like firsthand experience, like something that was like pitched or something that just blew up. Like I want to hear a story where someone was like winding up to hit a grand slam and like the bat ends up in like the stands type thing.
Wow. One that I wish actually made it to the market was 3 years ago. We tapped into one of the best creatives, you know, in the marketing industry. His name is Alex Bogusky. He founded the firm Crispin Porter and Bogusky. So I ended up reaching out to him when he decided to come out of retirement, and pitched him on possibility of blockchain.com and Crispin Porter working together. And Alex ended up taking the lead on coming out with some concepts for us. What was crazy is the concept they presented. They, you know, typically you pitch or you brief an agency and they come back to you with 3 directions. This time, these guys come back with 1 direction. They had such strong conviction for this. The bummer is it never made it to the market. It never got approved, but I'll tell you guys what the campaign was. This was a time when you know, there was quite a political divide in the country. Trump had just taken the office. Hillary had lost the election, and the campaign was defund Hillary or defund Trump. And the idea was we take our stellar airdrop value and we let people claim the airdrop, the stellar airdrop, but rather than having it sit in their wallet, they defund either the Trump campaign or the Hillary campaign by donating to the opposite side. I thought it was genius, but I think it was too uncomfortable. Of course, you know, lawyers do everything, and in this case, we didn't ship it. But I thought that would have been one of the most interesting campaigns.
That's ridiculous. It is crazy to think about how many ideas die like right before that. You know, right before they go live, and people don't realize how much time and effort is spent on that kind of creative process to end up with nothing. And like, even to the point where sometimes things are completely shot and paid for, and they're just like, nope, that's not going live. So Jason, what do you think? I mean, it could even be like, have you been in like a boardroom and someone's pitching like a really, you know, interesting idea or something, and it's just an absolute just fail?
Well, you know, when you mentioned sort of just ridiculous, over the top ideas, I don't have the specific ad agency and agency experience that you both do have, but you know, just thinking back to 2017 and being and chatting with a lot of these token projects that were thinking about launching and how to get attention. Not to name names, and you know, some of them actually didn't work out, so maybe for good reason. You know, the ideas that almost always popped up was, hey, look, the audience is very young. The audience is very finicky. And how do you sort of get top of mind and in front of these people? And inevitably, and obviously there's this all mindset of, you know, getting rich quick and all this stuff. So inevitably the campaign ideas would float towards just ridiculous, and I won't go into details, but ridiculous sexual type based sort of themes, right? And it's just like, what are you guys doing?
It goes downhill fast.
Exactly, and a lot of these projects did go downhill very quickly, right? That time period of our industry, probably not our proudest collective moment, but that to me, again, without going to specifics of what was brought up, I mean, just ooh.
Very cool. And I want to bring John back in as long as his there he is. He's live.
Welcome back.
My partner in crime.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you. You know, there's a first time for everything. My internet doesn't want to work today.
Yeah. And John, you know, you've been in, 20-year agency vet. I wanted to ask these questions to you too, and you're going to have to like rapid fire so we can go through. But the first question was like, what brand or brands was most memorable to you as a child, and why, looking back now as an adult, excuse me, do you think that was so impactful?
Oh man. I'm going to go, I'm a lifelong Southern California native. And so I'm going to go with Cal Worthington and his dog Spot. He was a car dealer in Southern California, and he would always come on TV. I mean, literally every commercial break for years. And he'd be like, playing with a bear or a tiger or like, on top of a biplane, literally standing on top of the plane with his arms in the air. And I think there's a couple pieces there, like repetition, willing to take risks, and just knew his market. Like he just knew like what resonated. I think at one point he even had, you could come in and they'll give you a free steak dinner just for test driving a car. And what's kind of funny is Joe, going back full circle, when we worked with Hyundai and Genesis and Kia, I mean, we saw dealers doing the same thing just a few years ago. So, but that's pretty memorable for me.
I love it because it's like, Haider talking about Pepsi and Jason talking about like Nintendo. It's like gaming engagement, big brand, like feeling idea. And for you, it was like the gimmicks and the jingles got you, like that zinger, like never forget. Then the next one I wanted to ask you, because you got a ton of experience, was like, what was the most ridiculous campaign you've ever seen pitched that just completely failed and fell on its face?
Oh man. That would take me some time to think about. I
think names and people and dates. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I remember when Joe pitched that one client.
It was probably me.
I'm going to stick with automotive because I think it's not necessarily one campaign. I'm not going to go into super details on these things, but a lot of it is like car dealers tend to not know their audience. They tend to think people want to come in. They tend they tend to think that people want to come in and watch the Super Bowl because it's playing at the car dealership, and they literally advertise it. So I think I would just say like a lot in automotive tends to be against its own customer and what they want. So I'll just leave it at that versus getting specific.
Not listening as well. Very cool.
Do you guys remember the billboard war between Audi and BMW in LA?
I do. And I remember it was Audi bought the one right off the 55 in Newport Beach on purpose. And there was a whole war just around that one billboard specifically. I remember a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool stuff.
I think I know which billboard you're talking about because Audi still has it.
Yep. They don't want to give that one up.
Yep. Right on the right side. Now I know why they keep buying them. Like this is not helping them. Cool. So knowing all of that, talking about brands, talking about everything, and Jason, maybe we can start with you. What separates like a legendary brand from like a really, really good brand? Like what is that last 1% that separates those two things in your opinion?
Yeah, to me, I'm mostly on the consumption side of branding, right? Haider is probably well versed to talk about the creative and creative side. But for me, I think it's something that you can. One, obviously, the recognition is sort of baseline, right? Just being able to close your eyes, visualize, and sort of understand what this company is delivering. But I think what separates the best from the good is when you close your eyes and think about that brand, it sort of evokes sort of this deeper emotional connection, I would guess. And it's this alignment of me as a consumer, my values, and what I'm looking for with what this brand is delivering, and sort of having that emotional connection, I think is what separates the top brands. Yeah, that's my take.
That's good. And then Haider, what do you think? What separates? What kind of creates that legendary feeling versus someone that's just doing it really good, and maybe kind of tie that into like, you know, how do you create that, and how are you guys thinking about that, you know, at OKCoin?
Yeah, I think we're at a pretty early stage of our brand journey. What separates, in my view, you know, a brand, a top tier brand from others is, I think the notion of don't sell dog food, show people how to love dogs. And I think that notion, if we can all embrace it in the rest of the industries, I think that's what, you know, basically separates amazing brands from mediocre brands. Can you imagine the point at which there was a board meeting at Nike and they were like, look, we're going to stop selling shoe features and we're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about empowering people to believe in themselves. And that's a really tough decision. But you can see the results. Nike by far is the fabric of our culture at this point, and they tell amazing stories. So I think it's about brands end up taking a lot of real estate in our lives. They own most of the channels. And so when you're getting exposed to these brands, and if it's always about sort of value proposition and selling you as a consumer, it becomes less interesting. There's less inspiration in them. So I think any brand that is able to draw inspiration and tell a cultural story and be audacious and do things that are uncomfortable. Colin Kaepernick, I remember like when everyone had sort of shut his contracts down and Nike decided they're actually going to go out there and sponsor him and do an ad deal with him. I think that was probably a really difficult decision for them. And they did get a lot of backlash, you know, in press and what have you. But you should, you know, if we all look at their earnings report, the next earning report after that campaign went live, the result is in the pudding. You know, people really did flock to their brand, and the sales went up. So I think it's ultimately about taking risks, but also being bold and not worrying too much. I think we oftentimes, especially in crypto, worry too much about pleasing everyone, and that's not possible. I don't think brands should worry about pleasing everyone.
I think that's a great take. I mean, just thinking about that Nike decision in your mind, I mean, how much data do you think they really looked at or ingested based on that decision? Or do you think they just made like a cultural gut check saying, this is what we're doing? And like, we're not going to look at as much data on something like this. Or do you think that they had data and they were making decisions based on that?
I hope they weren't looking at data. Look, we are all very data driven. I've had my career, you know, mostly in growth roles where the primary use case is, you know, it begins with data. And you can't really rationalize a decision unless you have substantial data to say this direction's better than the other. But as a marketer, having started my career on Madison Avenue, I try and like blend both of them together, meaning your intuition and data together. There's a great article that I've referenced a few times, a story about Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch was going through, you know, after the Depression, they were having a hard time convincing Americans to invest in the American economy or stock market. And they worked on a bunch of research and they were putting a bunch of campaigns out there and nothing was sticking. And ultimately they came up with this tagline, "We're bullish on America." And if you look at one of the archives of one of their advertising managers talking about the campaign, he says it very explicitly. He says, "I wish this was a result of research and data." It wasn't. It was a fluke. And I think in this world of data, we often forget that our own intuition sometimes can be stronger in driving a change than what data is telling you. Data just drives incremental improvements.
No, that's a great take. And I mean, even though Basecamp was a little controversial this week on some of the stuff they've said, I've kind of always appreciated like their approach to product and, you know, not necessarily being obsessed with every single, you know, piece of, you know, data that comes through. And sometimes you just kind of have to feel it as you're seeing kind of all of this stuff come at you. And it might not be the most calculated thing, but like you said, intuition and creativity are what really kind of creates a brand.
One thing to mention.
I want to hear your call on that too.
I mean, I totally agree with all this. That, there's data, there's having, resonating emotionally with your users, but then there's another side, and that side is crypto. And I'm going to give an example, and it's no offense to any of these three projects, but I'm just making a point out of them because it's a good point. There's 3 tickers with the ticker YLD, right? Joe got called out actually yesterday on it. It was pretty fun. But there's 3 tickers with YLD. Both of them have the name yield. All 3 have the name yield in it. How many other projects do you think have the word yield in it? And then they all, when you look at their description, we're DeFi, we have a DEX, we provide this and that. It literally sounds the same. And so in crypto, it feels like people aren't even thinking. Like we're getting this, there's engineers that are technically capable. They go and launch these coins, and then there's no emotional connection at all. There's no brand. It just functions. It just works. And I wonder what your guys' thoughts are around sustainability of that. I mean, on our side, we see, 20 coins a day requesting to be added to our site, and 19 of them, it's like, wait, what? They're not listed anywhere. Like there's nothing going on. They're just constantly coming up. There's zero brand. And I'm wondering your guys' thoughts on the sustainability of what we're seeing right now in crypto with so many coins entering the market.
I can jump in and take a stab at that one. I think, crypto is very cyclical, right? And we're obviously in a state of the cycle where, let's just say the greed factor is higher than average. And when that's the case, I think all sort of decisions tend to be a little bit more short-dated and short-term. And so when you're talking about building a brand, which I think we all agree is super important, that's more of a longer term type of decision, right? You got to take the time and effort to really cultivate and develop that connection. I don't know the 3 projects that you mentioned, and not to disparage them at all, right?
Right.
Taking the time to actually educate the audience, the users, not only about the features, but the value prop and sort of building that connection is probably maybe lesser on the top of their agendas right now. And then secondly, I think crypto obviously being a bit more technical, a little bit maybe more geeky, and people that are I think maybe tend to discount that importance of building that brand up front. Focus more on the technology first, and the features and all that might play into it a little bit too. That's my guess.
It's almost like we need to create one place where everyone can go and double check their tickers across multiple exchanges. Right. I don't know. Maybe we have enough people on this call to figure out how to do that, I bet.
I mean, think about it. Like you got, it's not like say a LunarCRUSH issue or an exchange issue or whatever. It's like if someone's using the same ticker, especially one as a publicly traded stock, when you use that ticker across the entire internet, you're getting blended with all sorts of other stuff. It is not a good idea. So, and there's no technical workaround. That is the state of the union. It's the same thing as search engine optimization. It's like if your name is, dog, you're going to get ranked with all the other things called dog, and you're probably not going to be even on the first 10 pages. So it's definitely it's an issue I see a lot. I would take the inverse. So I'm going to give a shout out to Stacks, because I still remember when we went to the Blockstack Summit 5 years ago, I think it was at this point, and it was all engineers. Those guys were still focused on brand, and you see their evolution, changing their name, their logo, their brand communications. It's constant. They have a super focus on brand and technology.
It is. That's John. It's a fascinating example because I can't point to many crypto firms that's like that operate like Blockstack. But before going there, I want to address the previous point. There is the ticker, the language, the naming issue, which is engineers not doing their due diligence to say, hey, how do we differentiate? How do we make sure that our project is unintentionally not borrowing or replicating somebody else's existing product? But there's also the visual issue. You guys saw us make a hard decision for a number of reasons. We delisted BCH BSV. It was a controversial decision. Our CEO wrote a pretty thoughtful piece on the why. ultimately, from my end, the key concern was we were bringing in all these new crypto entrants into our ecosystem, and for them, when they look at the three logos, they look almost identical: Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and BSV. It's not that we support those forks. We think there's utility that those communities are building as a fork to Bitcoin. But when you start blatantly using the branding, I think that's not cool. And maybe that was done, not with a malicious intent. But ultimately, you give the Blockstack example, they evolve. I think BCH, BSV, it perhaps is time for them to evolve and update that logo. Stop using the Bitcoin, B, because it just confuses. It's not just even about early entrants. It's not good optics for the crypto industry, because a lot of the traditional finance is looking at discrediting us. They're trying to see how they prove crypto to be more scandalous and what have you. And I think with these types of sloppy mistakes, it makes the issue even worse. So it's not just to summarize. It's not just the naming. It's also the visual look and feel. We all have owe it to ourselves to differentiate. And the Blockstack example, look, it's so interesting. These guys are phenomenal engineers, and they have done such an incredible job at branding. So much so that at a time in 2018, I believe Blockstack was the only crypto firm with a brand page where you could go and you could look at their logo, how to leverage the logo, all that good stuff.
Yeah, guidelines.
Yeah. And there's no crypto firm out there today. You would expect other bigger brand names to actually have that. We just launched that page as part of this rebrand. But yeah, credit to Blockstack. I think they did it earlier and much better.
I remember
and it
going
goes back
back
to having foresight, right? And longevity. That's what the intent is, right? I think I agree. Sorry, cut you off.
I was just going to say, I remember when they put billboards up in San Francisco that crossed out "Don't be evil" and put "Can't be evil," and they placed them. I think it was on the path towards the Google offices, and I'm like, that's something you'd hire like a big agency to do for you. That's not something that you typically see in the crypto space. That's why it's a good example, because it feels like we're sort of getting to this point where some of these projects are so cash rich that we're talking $500 million to $1 billion that they're willing to invest in all sorts of ecosystem growth. It just seems like there needs to be a greater allocation towards marketing and making people understand what their brand is.
If they don't do it, I think our traditional fintech will just eat our lunch. That's been my thinking is, look, we'll build all this great infrastructure, and then the consumer finance companies will just come and gobble up that stuff and build a brand on top of it.
Right, and the consumer wouldn't know the difference. I mean, so you guys created two like perfect segues to two questions I have, and now I can't decide which one I want to ask. But I think I'll start with so like we did watch as you guys, you started listing some kind of marquee projects, at least cool projects that we saw early, like a Stacks, like we're talking about, or Avalanche, like an AVAX, and I think now you've added Dogecoin, right? And so I want to know, like, what has this strategy been around the listings? And, because it kind of seemed towards the beginning of the year, some of these things started to kind of pop up, and you guys did a great job of getting that out to the community. I mean, what's the strategy been, and how have you kind of approached that?
Haider, you want to take this one?
Sure. Look, ultimately for OKCoin, it's a pretty crowded space. We're trying to create our distinction in the space. How can we deliver unique value to investors and traders? So when we look at our role, one of the opportunities we saw in the market was, how do we leverage our licenses to introduce really compelling assets to markets where it's taken time for those assets to show up? It's easier for you to list an asset in a self-regulated market. It's much more challenging when you're working with regulators to do so. So the opportunity that we saw was, can we take these compelling assets like Stacks 2.0 in particular, AVAX, Algorand's stable assets, and be the first exchange to bring it in markets where a licensed exchange needs to operate? and you have fiat on-ramps or the ability for people to fund and withdraw using their local currency. That's really been the core of our strategy up to this point. I think our strategy is likely to evolve, just like our brand will continue to evolve. But right now, what our focus is how can we continue to bring listings, especially to US customers where there's limited choice oftentimes. How can we open up these markets and let US investors and investors in other regulated markets be able to get that exposure? Question about Doge. I think the decision around Doge was more about community demand. We had a lot of customers request it. And that was the primary reason for us to accelerate the listing of Doge.
Yeah, I would echo that community aspect. I think we saw, my team, Haider's team, we all saw this was literally what our customers are asking us for. And I think what differentiates us a little bit is actually we listen and we respond. And so this was just one of, I think Haider mentioned some, but things that we do just to react to what our customers want, right? Doge, obviously, very popular in the past few months. It's fun, right? And so we also want to be there where our customers want to be.
Yeah, and I don't think that you can be a company, a brand, without obsessive customer focus and a really strong pulse on your customer community. So we talked about brands earlier. What differentiates great brands from mediocre brands? I think the really important aspect to this is even if you don't have the sexiest, coolest branding out there, if you're listening to customers, if you have that customer obsession in solving their problems, I think there's that path of building a really powerful brand.
Totally. Yeah. I think like here in the US, for everyone listening, we have a pet food brand or pet supply brand called Chewy. And in my opinion, Chewy has the best customer support on the planet. It's like, it creates like, I've heard some stories, and I don't know if this is true, about like actually screwing up people's orders on purpose so that they could come to the rescue and like go above and beyond. And it's like instantly, it's like you hate the brand. If they fix everything that, went wrong and go above and beyond, you're like, I'm buying from them forever, because like that headache is gone, and the being listened to feels so good. So it's like, maybe we can talk about customer support and customer success a little bit. It's like that plays a huge role in creating, a positive atmosphere in a brand. I mean, how do you guys think about customer success?
Joe, just on that Chewy note, no wonder I see in my mailroom downstairs, there's tons of boxes from Chewy.com. And I haven't tried them yet.
Yeah.
I will give them a shot.
Yeah.
And sorry, what was the question?
Just customer success and how that kind of fits into like brand loyalty and brand, and for us as a growing brand, we're constantly we're starting to think about how do you build that vertical out and make it deep enough. It's a 24/7 365 trading environment. It's like it's a difficult to think about being on the same level as like a Chewy, where it's like when someone calls, they're asking like very detailed questions, or you even have a phone number. How do you guys think about approaching that?
I think Haider, please chime in a little bit more in depth. But it's obviously one of the ways where we get in touch with our customers, right? It's a key customer touch point, and it's supremely important to us. We've quadrupled our team on the customer success side already just recently, and we have plans to do multiples more. Just one, because of the amount of growth we're seeing, but also two, we know how important it is. I think there are areas where we identify we could do better. And so we're working hard to improve that. But it is so important because crypto is unique, like you said, as an industry and as a business servicing that 24/7, like you said. But there's also these new value networks that no other businesses besides our industry are playing with and making sure customers are able to interact with. I'm talking about like crypto withdrawals and deposits, products where like OKCoin Earn, where you deposit your crypto and earn interest. There's a lot of nuance around there where while we're trying to make it simple, accessible, and understandable for users, there is still a crypto layer there that sometimes when knock on wood, when things go wrong, we need to be able to explain and resolve these issues to the client. So it's super important. I hope I was able to. Yeah, that's my one point. It's something that we constantly work on.
Yeah, I would say similar to what Jason said. If you observe us on Twitter, you'll notice that Jason, myself, Hong, our CEO, a few others from our team, were quite proactive and not shy about responding back to customer comments or questions or DMs. There was this uncomfortable feeling that I carried with me, having experienced crypto since working at a crypto firm. My first crypto firm, one of the largest wallets, they have a bigger challenge with customer service because they have millions. The scale is just at another level. I think they're at 70 million wallets at this point. Their actives are probably a few million. So they did get, while I was there, they did get a lot of inbound customer inquiries, but it's really uncomfortable. There wasn't a lot of focus on responding to customers on social. There was a big effort in diverting them towards the ticketing system. And again, it goes back to how you want to build your brand. I think you cannot ignore a customer channel, especially when you're in the financial services business. Now, for a wallet company, a self-custody wallet company, one can argue you don't really need to indulge in customer inquiries as much as, say, for example, us. We're a licensed exchange. Our sort of the way we service our customers is a lot more intimate and connected. We're connected to their banking system. We help them create a portfolio. We help them get educated on how to think long term, how to think about these assets. So I think we naturally, it's in our DNA to play more of an intimate role, given our structure. So for us, social is a really important channel. Over the last year, what we've started to do is, get in there ourselves. So like I mentioned, Hong, myself, Jason, and others, we're responding to everyone. If you DM us, whether it's our corporate channel or you DM any of us directly, you'll definitely get a response from us. And the community recognizes that. And I think that's part of the reason why people are choosing, one of the reasons why people are choosing to come to OKCoin, along with some of the other things like these access to these assets like AVAX and stacks, really low fees. But what they also know is when there is a problem, if it's related to their bank account, if it's related to a trade or what have you, we will respond and we'll mitigate it. So Jason was mentioning we're increasing the size of our customer service team. That's a really big bet for us. In addition to that, I think what we're also doing is deploying more staff to manage customer inquiries coming from social media. We also are not shy about putting a live chat feature on our web app. So now if you're on okcoin.com and you are in your dashboard and you end up running into an issue, there's a live chat feature right there. It's connected to our customer service teams. It automatically instigates a ticket for your inquiry if it's not resolved within the live chat. So those are the things that we're doing to walk the talk. Ultimately, we think that these efforts are really important in building a long-term promising brand that people love.
I'm so curious on what kind of things are people typically inquiring about?
It's fascinating. A lot of times it is stuff related to our user experience, and it really helps us improve our user experience. We've kind of gone through this evolution where a year ago we were a really advanced trading platform. We were sort of like, a pro advanced trading platform essentially. And in the last 6 months specifically, we've gone towards this more of a portfolio management approach. So we've become a hybrid now. When you enter okcoin.com, it is a portfolio platform, like where you can manage your assets, you can look at the value over a period of time, so on and so forth. But you can also easily migrate into the advanced experience without having to log out and then log back into a new system. So I think a lot of the inquiries are related to UX. As we're evolving at high speed, people tend to have questions about, hey, how do I find X or things of that nature.
I'm also, just to follow, I'd like to go back to Doge for just a second. So on that note, you guys mentioned that there was just a lot of demand from the community around adding Doge. Where were you listening? Was it from your chats on your site? Was it social? Where were you looking?
Jason, do you want to take it, or?
You can take it. You were about to say something.
I think it was a combination of channels. It was social. We heard it on social quite a bit. We heard it in our surveys. We have an onboarding survey where we typically randomly ask our new customers what they would like to see on OKCoin. So I think it was a combination of two. And we all know Doge community is pretty active. So, when they want something, they're pretty vocal about it.
It's putting it lightly.
Yeah, John, just to answer your question earlier about what issues that users see, it's ironic, but and sometimes the most painful issues are actually when we have to interface with the traditional banking system, right? It's a bit out of our control, and it's completely opaque. Don't know where the wire went, for example. These are things that we know crypto improves on. But at the same time, that's what we're trying to deal with, some of the flaws of the older system. So yeah, just want to chime in on that point.
Yeah, it's the older system, but it's also now we're seeing more of the older generation, right? And they're not used to. I'm like, oh, just grab your your browser wallet, do this, send it to here, put in the ERC20. Like they're just like, boom, right? So it's like you have to go slower. It has to be more methodical. It has to be so simple. No offense to the boomer generation. Some of those people are much better than even I am. But on average, it seems like we're kind of moving to a different place when it comes to the new generation of folks that are coming in. And it, so it sounds like these listings, everything was kind of part of this larger rebrand that was all kind of in the works. And it's like, I kind of assimilate like rebranding. It's kind of like moving your furniture around. It's like kind of all the same stuff, but like psychologically it's the start of something new. So like what was the inspiration behind kind of like the rebrand and why you guys thought now was the time to get out and do that? And I want to try and kind of show your site here if it'll let me share it.
Cool. I'll take it first really quickly. I think we threw the couch and the furniture out. We didn't just move it around. I think we just completely reinvented ourselves. Our main motivation was, can we evolve into a brand that is more experientially more appealing? That's one of the things that was important to us as we were evolving as a company. But with brands, I think a logo has to have some meaning. And so we went on this journey internally to figure out things that felt authentic to us, that we wanted to celebrate, where we felt like there was a natural connection, and where we felt a direction could also tell the story of what the role we're looking to play in this industry, in the world, for consumers entering these crypto markets. So the logo itself is sort of a nod to the ancient Chinese currency. And the way we look at this new logo is that it serves or demonstrates a bridge that we can serve between the old and the new, the old financial system and the new financial system. And it also celebrates the concept of dualism. And in that concept, we also felt that crypto is really designed today for the insiders, and insiders speak to other insiders, and that language is understood between them. But the outsiders looking at crypto, they're often confused, or things are just not as simple to them. So this is sort of a nod to the outsiders. Can we bring the outsiders into the system and serve that bridge and the connection point between traditional finance and the world of crypto? I probably didn't articulate that the way it's meant to be, but Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you said. I did want to just highlight, exactly how that journey has come through. We were founded 8 years ago, and so our logo. I was looking back through my old notes and looking back at some of our old logos and designs. We started off with just a sort of like an OKCoin blue wording, with the K having it. I can't. Hopefully, I'm describing this correctly, but with the K having like an arrow up, kind of like, hey, look, the price is going up. And then inside the O, we had a Bitcoin logo inside it, right? it's a very I don't want to say sloppy, but visually sloppy, but it had some meaning to it, right? It's kind of like, hey, look, we're Bitcoin exchange to start, and the price is going to go up, right? Come trade with us. So sort of the intent there. But if you were someone like an outsider, like Haider said, you looked at that just looks almost like a bit of a joke, right? It's like something you and I put together in Microsoft Paint or something. We just slapped some things together and put a little arrow there, and made the color blue. So I think that evolution over time of where we started and where we're headed today is what Haider's talking about, right? You've identified also correctly that the audience has changed, right? It's no longer just the geeks and maybe the really pro traders that are touching the space now. Now it's an actual financial system. This is the bedrock of the next financial system, and there are boomers and older people and even young people that are now being introduced to the space, and we want to connect with those that new audience as well. I think that's the journey that we're going on, and now's such a great time to do it because precisely we're in this part of the cycle where mass really awareness of crypto has been reached, and then now it's about the adoption and people onboarding to crypto itself.
I love how you future-proofed the Bitcoin price on the page, by the way. A lot of times you see people use like some old kind of like $12,000, whatever. It's like, I actually could see that be, get the team on it, make that dynamic.
What was that? What do we
so if you look at your screen here, this 82, a lot of times you see people put like an old number. I'm thinking we take this one step further. We make this dynamic. What do you think?
Maybe it is. Is that real? Is that live right now?
Tell the PM to get on that. I'm sure they're going to love me.
No, yeah. I think our hope was that eventually we will make it dynamic. And by the way, Joe, you can click on those things and it takes you into the new transition, the advanced transition rather. But just speaking more of the brand, look, there's an opportunity for wealth creation and wealth management to be more fun, to be more approachable and personable. I tweeted this morning, let's kill finance blue. I personally think like we need to evolve out of that look and feel. And there are companies that are doing a phenomenal job at this. It's not just us. There are a few brands that I could name like Robinhood and Cash App. I think these firms are doing an amazing job at humanizing some of this stuff. One thing is about the technology access and being able to access these instruments on your phone. But the other is like, how do you improve the front end so it's actually really fun and engaging to play with? There are companies like Acorns, these guys are doing it really well. So we wanted to take what other brands are doing really well and bring it into crypto and do it our own way and do it with some level of intent and meaning in our logo, which then serves as a really strong foundation for how we embrace creativity in the coming months. And I think one thing we can promise you, Jason and I, is I'm putting Jason on the spot. He's on the hook now. Is we're gonna do a lot of creative stuff. Now, this brand, the launch of this brand is like a very early beginning. What OKCoin does from here onwards is going to be very unconventional, not something that you see finance companies do typically, or especially crypto companies do typically. Ultimately, we're not in the business of, or internally when we think about our strategy, we're less worried about what other crypto companies are doing. What we want to do is go capture the close to 1 billion people who have stocks in their portfolio, but they don't have crypto. We want to go onboard those people. And so there's, I think there's a big market out there, and we're more excited about appealing to customers who are early entrants into crypto. And ultimately, how can we simplify the heck out of this experience? So, our grandparents or anyone new to crypto doesn't feel intimidated, and there's a sense of trust coming into these markets. And we have a long way to go to achieve that. But hopefully in that long journey, we can be super, super creative and fun so that we give people and our customers something to talk about.
No, great explanation. And, just kind of looking at the brand, and it's very clean, it's simple, and it's what people need to see, like a better way to Bitcoin. I like that line that you guys went with, and it makes sense. It's like, thinking about some of the kind of difficult language that people would use to, explain their brands of like, we've seen a lot of the crazy, decentralized finance, machine learning, artificial intelligence, it's like, that's just not the way the normal consumer is digesting this. They don't have enough time to think through those things. It's an inundation of data. And so I know we're coming up here a little bit on time. I do want to ask a more kind of like industry question, because you talked a little bit about some of the competitor type people or people that you guys are kind of admiring a little bit that might be more in kind of that equity space. But the way I kind of think about competition is, if someone's building a business in crypto and they're building a business that's similar to even the one that we're building, like all things removed, that person would probably be like extremely similar to who I am and like could be my best friend, right? It's kind of the way I think about it. So like there seems sometimes to be some negative, like behavior in our industry, or people are saying they're so tribal with these projects and everything else. It's like, if you guys could kind of wave a magic wand and say, hey, how could all of crypto take all that energy and put it towards something that moves us all forward? What would that thing be, outside of all of us getting together and creating a Super Bowl spot for next year, which I think we should all do?
I'll chime in quickly first. I think this so-called tribalism, people getting at each other's throats, maxis and all these things, optically it may look bad, right? People misbehaving, whatever. But I personally don't think it is that bad. And a lot of it actually happens in, obviously on social media. It's very public, but it's very also in an impersonal type of way, right? When these people, and without naming names, actually get together and sit in the same room, everyone's actually quite nice and cordial and respectful of each other. So I think there's a bit of an amplification or maybe misamplification of certain bad behaviors, as social media does, just to, that's what catches the headline or is a little bit more entertaining or dramatic, right? And so maybe it's not so bad. I do think that the reason why people are so, repeating your language, you're being tribal about what they're doing, is because this stuff is important, one, to us all, but also to the individuals themselves. There's an identity factor. There's a actual monetary factor, right? They're typically invested in the success. And so that passion, like you've identified, is super important. I think crypto is still early. And so when people drive that passion into betterment of their own project or protocol, there is still this sort of competition between protocols and competition between projects that is personally, I think, very much welcomed, right? The market ultimately decides what succeeds and what doesn't. And I think if for crypto as a whole to succeed, we do need, not every single crypto is going to succeed, right? I don't think that's how it's going to play out over the longer term, but the winners will. And that fighting or competition is actually, I think, super important in that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think from my side, if I had a magic wand, I would say the biggest thing that would benefit us all is probably creating more interoperability between exchanges, between wallets, between platforms, between different assets. We're trying to do this as much as we can in good faith. Look, we integrated unstoppable domains with the idea that it does create interoperability between different exchanges and wallets. For customers, it's a great value proposition for customers. I think in addition to that, there should just be more cooperation between different exchanges, wallets, and assets. I think we're all operating in silos, and I wish there was a point in time every year where we do get together and there's sort of like an industry event. Right now, it's more like an outbound event, like Bitcoin 2021, for example, coming up. And I think the third thing that COPA, for example, is starting to do is protecting the industry and its IP, specifically in the case of Bitcoin. So I think that's really, really important. The reality is there were no IP lawyers when crypto started to get incubated, and there are a lot of issues in terms of misuse of IP and so on and so forth that we spoke about earlier, whether intentional or non-intentional. I think it exists. So I think those are the three things that I would say are limiting our ability to continue the hyper growth that we could have.
Haider, just on your second point about working together with other exchanges, I do want to point out that we launched Lightning to support Bitcoin faster and cheaper Bitcoin withdrawals and deposits. We are working with some other exchanges to set up channels and make sure that deposits that go between exchanges are super seamless, right? And they've also, other exchanges have also helped us as we got set up. So I think there is a bit of cooperation behind the scenes, and I agree. It's very important for the customer to see that.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe it is time to create that industry event, and maybe it is more of a closed internal event versus going and being that kind of outwardly event, so that there could be kind of people chatting behind closed doors. So really, really appreciate those thoughts. And so kind of finalizing some stuff here, I wanted to know what you guys wanted to leave us with today. I mean, I know we talked something at the beginning that you guys kind of wanted. Was there like an announcement, or what were we talking about here? Part of a beta?
Yeah, so Jason, jump in here. But the rebrand wasn't just the only thing that we announced. Of course, we announced the listing of Doge at the same time. But we've introduced a new app that's designed for early crypto entrants. A very simplified experience, an experience that enables you to seamlessly get into a crypto position like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and what have you. Manage your portfolio really seamlessly. It takes all the sort of complexity out of the app, and we have it in beta currently. So anyone listening in, if you're interested in being part of the beta, please DM Jason or myself, and we'll be sure to give you guys access. Just let us know that you heard this session and mentioned LunarCRUSH in your DM, and we'll be sure to give you first access.
Very cool.
Yeah,
this is brand new from the ground up, brand new app.
Yeah, I've been testing it for the past 24 hours, and it's beautiful. It's fun. It's good. It's great. And I'm on Twitter at Jason K. Lau. I don't know if anyone, if we're sharing those links, Haider.
Yeah,
we can throw it in the chat.
Oh, they are? Okay, beautiful.
Cool.
Very cool. And then Haider, you had one more thing you wanted to chat about, favorite brands in crypto?
I just want to quickly do a round robin and ask you guys, and Jason, what's your favorite brand in crypto today? Who do you think? I know we mentioned one in our conversation. I'm just curious if we can go around the table and see who our favorite brands are.
Whew. Who's going to answer that first?
Could get us into trouble here. I got one on the social side. I'll go. I mean, I like what the Chainlink community does. I respect their consistency, because I think one thing that we've learned more than anything over the last couple of years here is consistency matters so much. And they've got this huge army of people that are creating memes, that are constantly posting. So a lot of it has a lot of depth beyond the memes that are posted. I really respect what that community does, and I think they do a really great job. So that's admirable.
Jason?
I'm still thinking, honestly. So I will come a little bit later.
Cool. Joe, you got any?
I don't know if I have anything like super specific. I mean, I would probably be on the same thread as John a little bit. Like, I tend to really like the projects that kind of stay true to the core crypto. Like Monero is always like fun. Like there's always like little memes that kind of pop up out of nowhere, and you have to be so core crypto to like even understand like the joke. And it's like I love the folks that kind of come up with some of those. So I would say they do a really good job of that. And then like kind of a different thread of like some of the influencers that have been in the space for a long time. It's like to kind of set the test of time in the space, like Crypto Dog, like, from day one till today, still kind of like dropping the same type of knowledge and like challenges, to people. Like if you're not doing this, like trying to kind of create like a better person, but also a better trader at the same time. So like I kind of appreciate like the influencers that have done a good job over time with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go quickly, Haider. I know you obviously prepped for this question since you asked for it. But it was a tough one. I don't think it's that easy. Maybe that goes to speak of what we talked about earlier, where maybe crypto still has some work to do. Building that, this is not easy. I think at the expense of being maybe too simplistic, I think Bitcoin obviously has a great brand, right? I think we all own part of that brand, and I think it's the way it's evolved over time is pretty fascinating and entirely community driven, right? So that's one. But other than, and Joe, you mentioned sort of individuals. I think people like Meltem or Nick Carter, they have built up some pretty incredible brands of their own too. Again, amazing insight, but also energy and perspective. Just these guys are real cheerleaders for our space.
Totally.
Agreed. Well, mine is, of course, OKCoin. No, I'm kidding. It's not OKCoin. So I think the brand that has done really well from a user experience and brand look and feel standpoint is a company called Dharma. And I promise I'm not an investor. I don't have any relation to these guys. I actually don't even know them. But I've been using their product since they launched and just so impressed with the way they invest in their user experience, in the language. So this notion of simplifying your language and making it appealing for the masses, I think they've done a really good job at it. I don't know if you guys have tried it. I would try that. And then the other brand I think that's doing really well is Monolith. Now, Monolith is not available to US customers, but again, phenomenal branding. It's just so appealing. So I think these two brands really stand out that I don't think people are as familiar with, but have been doing an incredible job in the industry.
Yeah,
I want to throw one more out there because I forgot. That was too off the cuff. Chili's.
Yeah.
Chili's. So I'll go back. It was about a year ago, and we saw FC Barcelona was actually, I should say, on our site because we track social activity. We saw these huge social engagement spikes, and we saw that it was FC Barcelona was tweeting about them. And then it was another soccer team, and then another soccer team, and another soccer team. And you keep it going. And now they're adding UFC and all this stuff. So I think what they're doing is really a place to watch because it's not about crypto. It's about resonating with fans and creating things that are of value to them. It just so happens to be on their platform and use their token. And so I think that's really, really interesting. I look at it as like another on-ramp, just as we look at Bitcoin as an on-ramp, and we think of almost DeFi as an on-ramp. I think sports is an on-ramp, and I think it's really fascinating what they're doing. And I'll just say, it's almost as if social activity drives price because it's up 7,000% since we saw that. So crazy. Just making that point.
Yeah, and I guess I also can't go without kind of mentioning like Pomp and like Grayscale. Right, like I feel like Grayscale and like Pomp on CNBC, like fighting that New York fight that the rest of us like nerds don't want to fight, is really important for the industry. And so it's like definitely shout out to those folks that are working on that, and I think it's huge for us. So well, cool, Haider, Jason, John, super fun. Thank you guys for coming on. Congrats on all the success. It's going to be fun to kind of watch you guys evolve into the future and what's next to come. So I really appreciate you guys coming on and being a part of this. It's awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next time, thank you all.